But first, when Donald Trump ran for office, the top election issue was the economy. Trump had made some bold promises, like leaving the Paris Agreement and building a border wall with Mexico, and it seemed the usual political posturing to vote harvest. Trump was a TV star after all, and he knows how to work an audience. He was a man talking about protectionism in an open market, free trade party. Despite his overambitious, unorthodox agenda and tweeting style, Trump has turned the US economy around. He is fulfilling his election commitments and meeting the expectations of voters, with 76% of State of the Union viewers approving his speech. Since 2017, the Trump administration has achieved record tax cuts, creating 7 million new jobs, and unemployment rate is the lowest in over half a century. It's doubtful that any less obstinate president could have achieved these outcomes. But as his State of the Union address highlighted, no matter what, haters gonna hate. It was incredible to see Democrats sit stone-faced while Republicans cheered as Trump announced that African American youth unemployment has reached an all-time low. The unemployment rate for women has reached the lowest level in almost 70 years, and that 10 million people have been lifted off welfare. The reality is that those on the left don't care as much about the ordinary needs of individuals as they do about pushing an agenda of big government and groupthink. The Democrats couldn't even celebrate good news for workers during his speech.
This is a blue-collar boom.
And then there was Trump's impeachment, essentially a political stunt by increasingly desperate Democrats. With a Democrat majority in the House, Trump was always going to be impeached, and with a Republican Senate majority exonerated.
It was evil, it was corrupt, it was dirty cops, it was leakers and liars, and this should never, ever happen to another president, ever. I've done things wrong in my life, I will admit. Not purposely, but I've done things wrong. But this is what the end result is.
Democrats would have known Trump's impeachment was only for political point scoring. What they no doubt didn't expect was their strategic backfire, with Trump's voter approval rating now the highest since he took office. Thanks. Antoinette, thoughts?
Well, thank you for sharing your views. And I think there are two very distinct things here. I would agree with you that Trump is the president that the US deserves. But whether he's the president that the US now needs, that's where I have to disagree with you. When I say that they deserved him, I think the Democrats became complacent. They became out of touch with regular working class Americans, and Republicans for too long had snubbed them and thought of them as, not as their important or core base. And that's where Trump was able to swoop in. The Democrats also focusing on this impeachment process further shows the navel-gazing and Morrison refers to the Canberra bubble, same thing as the Washington bubble. The regular Americans don't care about that. What we have seen him do with, it's hard to refute, it's hard to argue with best job prospects for the Black and Latino populations. That's the lowest in a decade. But I think what is dangerous is that this economic prosperity, and some of the economic prosperity, I would have to say, has come from Barack Obama and some of the policies he had in place off the back of the GFC.
Wow, that's an incredible statement that you make.
And let me continue. But that's come at the cost of a slippery slope of losing or being happy to forego certain democratic freedoms. What we've seen is hate crimes have risen. We've seen less freedom of the press. The president essentially blacklists certain media outlets and refuses to talk to them. We've also seen that anybody who dares hold him to account, he disposes of. And this is a slip. These aren't the democratic ideals that the United States is historically known for. So when I say it's what the US deserves, it's because they seem to be happy for these short-term economic gains, and what I think they are losing is longer-term democratic freedoms.
I think with some of the media being, kind of blackballed by Trump, I think a lot of it is because he and so many of the population are sick of the lies that they're coming out with. And so, I'd be the same. I don't think Trump is a very nice person, perhaps, but I certainly do think that he is the president that the US needs as well, just in terms of getting things done. The State of the Union, I found, was a really impassioned speech. I had tears, I was laughing, I was watching Nancy Pelosi. It was hilarious. But for me, I think the most graphic moment, I think it was for a lot of people as well, judging by a lot of comments and phone calls even to C-SPAN, was the moment when she ripped up the commentary at the end. To me, that just showed, and as I said, by commentary going through phone calls to C-SPAN, people are ringing up and saying, I've been, you know, our family are generations of Democrat voters, but this is ridiculous. And so, as Antoinette was just saying, they are losing the hearts and minds of the regular people. Obviously, Twitter is going to come out and say, oh, Nancy's amazing and this is great. And
Twitter's so unrepresentative.
Twitter is so crazy. It's not real life.
Yeah.
It's not real life. But, I mean, that speech, it was the ultimate showbiz. It was just like a movie.
It was like the Jerry Springer.
It was like a movie.
I think that
it was like Oprah. It was like an Oprah show.
the difficulty with everything to do with Trump is it's always difficult to separate the alternative facts from the fake news. And I think it is difficult because to begin with, you think alternative facts and fake news are the same thing, but they're not. Because, see, President Trump never lies. If he says something that is at odds with the truth, it's an alternative fact.
Well, that's how he frames it.
Whereas if the media said something,
It's
such as
fake.
that Trump is a bully or a liar, well, that's fake news.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
And
I can see that.
it's an assault on free press.
I think the difficulty is a lot of us think, oh, how do you tell the difference between alternative facts and fake news? Because alternative facts are true and fake news is obviously
Look,
not.
it seems to be that, you know, people take what Trump says as...
I think the issue is Trump knows the difference because he's a stable genius and I'm not.
a self-proclaimed genius.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I know he's a stable genius because he's told us. For example, Pete Buttigieg, he's got, you know, a degree in history and literature from Harvard. He got a Rhodes Scholarship to go to Oxford. But he's never said he was a genius, so I don't think he is.
This is very typical. When people try to assess Trump's record and try and undermine him, it's always a character assassination, never looking at his actual achievements in office.
But it's not a character assassination. I've acknowledged that he's
his achievements in office. It is undeniable that he's actually made gains in the economic frontier.
Absolutely.
Something that the people of America are crying out for more jobs. People, we remember, people outside of the major cities were saying there's a decline in the manufacturing industry, loss of jobs, looking out for someone who's going to take leadership in that space, and he's done that.
Speaking of space, don't forget we've now got the Space Force.
True.
With the amazing uniform and the badge that's a little bit familiar, maybe.
But it's not all so rosy. Americans are also more polarised than they have ever been before. And since Trump came into office, there have been more hate crimes. And there's really clear and multiple research papers that show direct correlations between things he says about the Hispanic community or the Muslim community and hate crimes that follow.
So there were no hate crimes under Barack Obama,
but
so there was no gang violence.
I'm not saying that, but there's always...
during Barack Obama's time.
And of course,
any increase is therefore Trump's fault, is it?
Yes, when it's directly correlated to things that he says. And then I'm happy to share the papers with you. There are certain markers of
absolutely stood up against racism. He has said...
He peddles it.
I think the racial divide really started during Obama's time because, you know, I remember as a kid, like, I didn't bother seeing colour, and obviously Martin Luther King's speech, I don't want to see colour, and my children shouldn't have to live in that world. Now everything is so divided. We've got all this identity politics thing, and I have to see Cindy as an Asian lady and Karina as an Indian lady, and I'm just a regular old white lady. Okay. So I have to sort of, you know, and now everything has to be so racially divided because of the hashtag diversity, and that did start under Barack Obama.
Yeah, but in his State of the Union
sure.
address, Trump specifically pointed out and highlighted the achievements he's made for people of colour. And yet, as you know, we saw before, Democrats didn't want to hear it. Yeah. They didn't applaud. They completely ignore it. People push that to the side and say, oh, Trump is a hater. Trump hates people who are of any other race other than, you know, someone who is from the typical white that he represents, they say. But the reality is that he has done more for people who are of African-American descent.
And I agree with that, but I think, and that's why I say...
So how is he a hater? How is he causing hate crimes if he's actually supporting minority groups?
It's short-term economic gain, but more divided population. And I think it's a slippery slope. These are dictator-style moves, and anybody who opposes you gets fired. They get character assassination. When you assault free press, these are... If we look back at the history books, and these are fascist moves, I'm not saying he's a fascist, but what often happens when we look back at the history books is like, how did they let that happen? There were small incremental moves, and it is a slippery slope. And unless unless we call it for what it is, that this is not the democracy of the United States, a bastion of democracy it was known for. It's shifted from that.
Look, if
and
Trump was firing people, you know, left, right and centre, willy-nilly, that would be one thing. And sure, what you're saying would hold true. But he's firing people who have actually sought to undermine his administration. If you're going to run a sound government, if you're going to actually make advances, then you need to have a team that is going to support your policy agenda. Okay. If you've got a team that's constantly undermining you, then you do need to fix that. That is not a fascist move to do that. That is simply...
A surefire way to get... the Democrats on your side is to have Trump fire them. Now, you know, they're all loving on John Bolton, whereas they hated him before as a total war hawk. And then Trump gets rid of him, you know, a few weeks ago, and it's all like, oh my gosh, but what about him losing his job? It's crazy. The Trump derangement syndrome is just so beyond the pale. And even I don't even like having to kind of justify any feelings or stand up for Trump in any way. But the derangement syndrome is a real thing. It seems to be, speaking of anxiety, like this seems to be the most anxious thing that people have. People are ringing up their psychotherapists and medical practitioners to say, I can't get out of bed in the morning, I'm so worried about this and that because of Trump. It's bizarre to me.
And let's not forget that the people that Trump has fired are the people who tried to fire Trump.
Yes.
Does it not make sense that he addressed that? Anyway, Cindy, what are your thoughts?
Well, I found it interesting that you referred to groupthink in terms of the left. I mean, Trump surrounds himself with people who agree with him. Like you watch these those video grabs, and you know it's like they're automatons. Like he'll only have people surrounding him that say yes to him. So I think that's a form of group speak.
Well, any government would have people in their inner circle, advisors that are supporting them. If not, how would you get anything done?
I think even at any level of business, you look at any celebrity, any sports star, they're going to have a team around them that supports them. And it's the same. I know that if I was Prime Minister or President, I would want a team around me that actually supports me. I don't want the backstabbers to be right beside me.
But if the backstabbers are pointing out dishonest practices, then, I mean, I don't think it's as simple as saying, oh, well, you need people who support your policies.
Yeah.
You know, when the lieutenant, the decorated, you know, and I don't know his career history too closely, but he was quickly, after the impeachment, the Ukrainian whistleblower, he was quickly disposed of it.
Well, he wasn't fired. He was just moved to a different area.
Swiftly moved on.
I mean,
how many senior staffers has Trump shed?
But would anyone have criticised Barack Obama for seeking to have people who support him around?
But Barack Obama didn't get through so many senior staffers and get rid of them.
Nor was he attacked in the same way that Donald Trump is. If you compare Obama's time as president compared to Donald Trump, he is viciously attacked. His policies
Why do you think that
never scrutinised. No one is attacking his policies. They attack his person. And once again, that is just absolutely emblematic of the strategies that people on the left use. They attack the person. They character assassinate the person. They call them names. They don't attack the substance of what they're trying to achieve.
And he doesn't do that? He never calls people's names?
Sure, he does. Yeah, absolutely he does. He name-calls out as they name-call out. I suppose he's fighting fire with fire.
It's the same
and that's
kind
not
of
a path that we want to see go
politics
down.
that plays out on Twitter that we're seeing. But we are going to move